welcome to Vegan Stew. I'm Kimberly. I want to first thank our sponsor for this month, the Cotton Branch Farm Sanctuary. You give them a quick Google, check them out. And also our prize packs. You want to enter the Wish Pond, right? You never know what kind of cool stuff you can win. We've got uh, the prizes, that's the word, have been donated by Hodo Foods, Follow Your Heart, Cinnaholic, Revolution Gelato, Terra Seed, Fabolish, Rebel Cheese, and Veg Key. So visit the virtualvegfest.com and you can enter the, oh my God, you can enter your information there and you can win one of these amazing prize packs. All right, I'm gonna get a handle on this. What's the deal tonight? Okay. Welcome. Let's bring in, so tonight, first introduction, right? Per the postings, we were doing our Pride episode, and that has been pushed to next week. So this episode is kind of going to be whatever comes up. We have some news topics, so we have some stuff to start with. But if you've got questions about anything vegan related, please put them in the comments. Engage with us. Let's talk about something. You are more than welcome to start the conversation. It doesn't have to be just between those of us here on the Stew Crew. Come on in, join us. So with that, let me bring in the other people here with me tonight. So we've got Marla Rose from Vegan Streets and
Hi,
Kelly
everyone.
Kerr from Climate Healers and the Vegan Abler. So welcome. I'm excited about this despite all of the fumbling when I first started. It's so weird. I do a show myself every Monday, right? And I have been off for 2 weeks, so maybe I'm a little out of it, but it goes very smoothly. But I don't always open the stew, and it's just it's different, but it's not different, and somehow here we are. Well, anyway, Marla, let's start the news.
Yeah. You know what? I think we're all a little bananas lately, like with all these various things going on in lives, you know, whether it's COVID, whether it's just the onslaught of news things hitting us all the time. So and also, I don't know about you, but it's been like 100 degrees here. So we're all a little loopy near us. But anyway, I am bringing a couple of news stories that I thought were worth noting, and both are really positive for animals. Excuse me. The first one is in New York. It's called the New York Puppy Pipeline Bill. And a puppy pipeline sounds like fun, right? I'm into the idea of a puppy pipeline, except in this case, they're talking about the puppy mill to or breeder puppy mill to pet store pipeline. Good evening, Diane. And New York has just joined 5 other states in shutting that down. So other states, like I believe it is Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, have been main suppliers of puppies to pet stores and other pretty shady characters that have been selling. Not only do the dogs, when they're transported and get into these situations where perhaps people who are not fully prepared to you know, give a lifelong home to an animal, not only do they suffer, but the animals in these basically factory farms for dogs and cats and bunnies suffer tremendously. So anyway, a major pipeline has been closed as soon as the governor of New York signs that bill. It's been passed by the Senate and New York State Senate. It's looking pretty likely. And again, 5 states, including my own, Illinois, have a similar thing. So anyway, that's very good news for the animals. Adopt, don't shop always. Kelly, did you have something to say? Or
yeah, I just wanted to add to that because I used to work for an online classified site that had a pet category, and it became like my baby to keep that category clean. And the ways that they go about trying to like elude the sites that they post on, it was a constant, cat and mouse chase with them, right? They would change their phone number, their address, and it was a full-time job just trying to stop these puppy mills. So that's really, really good news just from my own experience and history. And, I mean, and trying to, for the 5 years that I was there, stop them, and working with the Humane Society, and, and not feeling like you're really getting anywhere because they were so tech savvy, even though you wouldn't really think it, because a lot of them came from like Ohio, Pennsylvania. They were a lot of, but so that's really good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times people don't realize that, many times it's coming from these, and I'm not saying this against the culture or the religion, but a lot of times from the Amish societies, they're breeding the animals for this purpose. What you mentioned is really interesting, because I know, like, for example, on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, it's not allowed to post animals, but people will sneak in there. And so it's upon us to, notice when that's going on and flag the post. Can you think of like some examples of sneaky language or sneaky ways of that, like breeders or people trying to sell animals would try to get into the system?
Yeah, I mean, the stance that our site took at the time was, well, they're just going to go to other sites and do this, and they're not going to be as good with their moderation. So we're going to take it upon ourselves to make sure that, we'll stop them, like we'll catch them. And so that was kind of, but we were like pretty much the only site, the American classified site, to do it, because like you said, Craigslist didn't allow it. Right. So, I mean, so when I was monitoring the ads, like it was straight out selling, like we allowed it, right? And then the Canadian side stopped. They were heavily moderated, and so they would use words like rehoming, right? So you're looking for a person who has like multiple young pets, cats and dogs, for rehoming, for like whatever, and they constantly have young pets or females, and the price is like not free. That's like absolutely right. Like if you're gonna rehome a pet, like I can't take care of my pet anymore, I'm rehoming it, but you're paying $800 for it,
for the crate.
They're selling it.
There's
so
a lot of...
I would like, what I would do would be, I would take the phone number, and I mean, we had tools to do this, right? But I mean, you can do this with Google. Take the phone number from the ad, search it. If you see, because that's what they'll do. They'll create different accounts, but they'll forget, and you have the same phone number or the same address. So take that phone number if you're suspicious, and Google it, or put it on the site. And if you see multiple ads and you'll see their different profiles, then they're just trying to get by the system so that they can,
that's so interesting,
sell their operation.
No, I'm sorry.
Are either of you surprised that this is still a thing? Like, do people not know about puppy mills? I feel like I've known about puppy mills since before I was even vegetarian, let alone vegan. And it always was appalling to me. There was never a point where I thought, no, that's worth it, so I could have a purebred dog, or so I could buy a rabbit from a pet store, because that's easier than the a shelter. Is it because people want purebreds? Because if that's the case, there are tons of rescues that are specific to purebreds. And then there's also, or is it because they don't want to be questioned by a shelter because there's a process they have to go through? Is that it?
is such a broad topic. I mean, I could say so much, and I'm trying to, not say too much. But one of the things I noticed is, to address your first question, puppy mills was sort of my gateway issue, if there was one, into becoming a vegan, because I was working at an animal sanctuary, I'm sorry, an animal shelter, and learning more about, forced breeding and that sort of thing. And it just kind of opened my eyes to all these other aspects. But I will say, when people would come in, this is a large animal shelter in Chicago, they would come in on their lunch break to adopt. And people would get, not always, a lot of times though, people get so irate that the adoption process included having to talk to a counselor, having to show, if you're a renter, that animals were allowed where you're renting, and people would get so livid. They're like, I came here to try to save an animal, and you people are trying to, keep the animal, you're trying to kill the animals. So I think that, like, this was many years ago, this is 20 years ago, plus there was this sense of, I think that kind of informs sometimes still the attitudes around companion animals and all other species, is this sense of entitlement of, this is owed me, I'm a human, I'm the top of the food chain, but the other thing I was going to mention is, many years ago at our animal care and control in Chicago, the biggest one, it was basically, if an animal went in there and was not a puppy or a kitten, preferably a purebred, the chances were extremely likely it would be euthanized. This was in the 90s. Today, whether it's an old animal, a blind animal, animals, pit bulls, or animals with fur loss or whatever, they all have their own rescue organizations that work directly with the shelter, and their adoption rate is like, I don't want to cite a figure, but it is night and day compared to what it was, because people have seen the images. People now know how many animals are needlessly killed, how many, and dogs and cats are where a lot of times our hearts soften toward animals, as opposed to so many other species. So anyway, the point is just that so many large cities are now working directly with these different rescue organizations. So if it's really important for you to get a puppy or a kitten, if it's really important for you to get a purebred, there are so many different, direct rescue organizations, but expect that you will have to, apply and go through, the process,
Yeah. And I'm thinking, as you were saying, that people would be like, I'm here in my lunch hour and I'm here to save this animal. You're not going to let me save this animal? How many of those people don't think twice about spending 8 hours at the car dealer?
Right.
That's
very true. I
not
think it's
even
just
a thought.
it is this feeling of entitlement. And a lot of times, like, we would be the counselors, we would be in like our 20s, and these were like, business people in from their, they would just be like, how dare you question me, and it's like, and then we would, like, take a little longer. And then we, this was in the days before Google, we had a whole system, a filing cabinet, where somebody returned an animal to us and gave us some janky ass excuse, like, oh, moving, sorry, we would fill out a card. So every time someone would apply, we had to, this was our Google. We went through our cabinets and say, hey, look, 6 months ago you adopted this dog and you returned him because you said he didn't match your furniture. So so we could play gotcha sometimes and manage to keep the animals in safer homes. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of human arrogance, and I kind of feel like, from working at the shelter, I worked there for 5 years, that you see the absolute worst of humanity and you see the absolute best of humanity when it comes to dogs and cats, because there are people who will do anything to save. Yes, Kelly.
I'd like to have your opinion on this, because, like, I noticed when I was involved with this site that a lot of it was driven by celebrities, like carrying their little cute designer pet in their little basket. And now I feel like a lot of celebrities are attaching themselves to rescues and being like the spokesperson. So that, I mean, we all know how celebrities influence our behaviors, right? So that might also contribute towards it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Because I know North Shore Animal League has Beth Stern, who is Howard Stern's wife.
Yes.
And that's the biggest no-kill animal shelter in the world. And they used to have huge galas, and they would have a ton of celebrities come, and donate or add their endorsement, to it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think there's I think the idea of a status animal was very 90s, like I got this dog from this specific breeder and I paid this amount of money and this is a very rare breed and blah blah blah. I think it's lost that cachet. I think I think that has changed a lot in the last 20 years or so of my little Ruby May is a Chihuahua mix, but she was rescued. All of our animals are rescued, and the other thing is mixed breeds tend to be healthier than purebreds. Right. This is not the fault of the purebred itself, but they just tend to have fewer genetic issues and that sort of thing, so anyway, I just think it's good news. I think, maybe we can look at this as like, well, I hope it'll be faster, but maybe this will be something that can show that we're changing in attitudes about animals in general,
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a happy story. And the other good story is in Mexico City, a judge has just extended the bullfighting ban. It's not an official ban. It's not officially banned in the country yet. But what he's done is extended it indefinitely until there is a vote on it. There is a very large venue, which is the last venue. And I hate to even say the word bullfight because it's basically blood sport torture of these animals. It's not anything remotely. I mean, not that we would ever think this, but that there's no fairness involved in this. Anyway, it was kind of an interesting point in the article I was reading that citizens near this venue appealed to the presented it as this bullfighting in general is in violation of their right to live in a healthy environment that's free of violence. And on the one hand, I'm really cheering the fact that they're calling this what it is, which is just abject violence. On the other hand, wouldn't it be nice if the animals were the reason, that we have evolved, that we have, moved on, it's a 500-year tradition though, and traditions take a long time to die out. But, this is another nail in the coffin for now, and let's hope that they're able to get it on paper that it is just outlawed altogether. But for now, it's indefinite. So that's a good thing. What do you guys think about that?
I think anytime someone is like, but it's a tradition, or we've always done it. Okay, but we're supposed to be growing. Like that's part of the human experience. That you learn and you grow and you change. Like if you're the same person today that you were, 25 years ago, something's not right. Like you should not be the same person. You have to learn and grow. So, and we had lots of traditions in this country, right? Things that, well, we've just done it for hundreds of years. Why would we stop? Because we know it's not right. Because we know that there's suffering involved and it doesn't need to be.
Right.
So whenever someone's like, oh, it's tradition, I'm like, so make a new one.
Right.
We can start new traditions. Right. It's meaningless. I get that I mean, it's not meaningless.
Right.
I get that there's this like this connection, this feeling
Right.
to,
Cultural
you know,
attachment.
your history and your culture and stuff, but we learn and we grow and we change, and we have to be willing to accept that we did something that was not
Yeah.
great, that was wrong, that was hurtful, own it, and then do it differently. Just like
Exactly.
as an offshoot, Lizzo just did this the other day. She released a new song, right, Girls, and she used an ableist slur, but she
Right.
didn't know when she wrote the song that that's what that word was. As soon as she found out, she recorded a new version.
Right.
She didn't just come out
You
and
know
say,
what
"Hey
word
guys,
she used?
really sorry."
Right.
What's that?
Do you know what word she used to replace
Yeah.
it?
So
To,
she used the word spaz
right.
from the word spastic.
Right.
So, you know, when someone has I think it's
Like a spasmodic condition.
yes, right. So like they're experiencing or they're like spazzing, right?
Yeah.
But that word has been used
Right.
to mean something else, right?
Sure.
And it's become an ableist slur. And honestly, I don't even think become. I think it always has been in kind of
Right.
the general vernacular. But
Yeah.
so many people are not aware of that. So and this has happened before where someone, a comedian or a musician, they'll use a phrase, a word, whatever, and they'll just be like, "Sorry, I didn't know, but I'll do better next time." Lizzo took it another step, and before she even said, "Sorry, I didn't know," she recorded a
Yeah.
new version of the song. And the album's not out yet, so the new version will be on
Oh,
the
so we don't
album.
know what the new word is.
Right, I don't know what she's replaced it with.
Well,
But yeah,
that's
so she said, like, then she came out and said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know. Here's the
right.
action I took. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Here's how I'm doing better."
Yeah.
We can all
Imagine
do
such
that,
a
and
thing.
it's okay.
Imagine not like getting bent out of shape with your ego and
Right.
just simply acknowledging it, fixing it, apologizing, moving on. Where people get hung up is when, you know, the person, whether they meant to or not, digs their heels in and refuses to listen and hear and be sensitive. And I mean, I think one of the things that Lizzo said, but by the way, spaz is very much part of my vernacular. I grew up in the 80s. That was the word universally that we used, you know, and somebody pointed it out to me, I don't know, a few years ago that I was so divorced from the origin of the word that it was just this collection of letters. It didn't have that, you know, but when somebody pointed it out to me, I was like, of course, that totally makes sense. And I'm not going to use that term anymore. But what Lizzo said too, that I thought was so important is, as a Black fat woman who is consistently called names and attacked publicly, you know, I'm you know, not quoting her directly, but that words harm, words matter, and we can all do better, you know. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and I'd love to see more examples of that. You know, it really is such a that was a really beautiful teachable moment for ourselves, for our kids, you know, like we can all do better. All of us,
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I was a teenager in the 90s. The two words that we used constantly were gay and retarded.
Yeah.
I don't, you know, those are not part of my
No,
vernacular. And, you know,
exactly.
that's just the way that they've been used was so hurtful. But
Yes.
that
Yes.
was just, you know, like you were saying, those were words that kind of became divorced from what they
Yeah.
actually meant. And they were being used in a way
And
that
who they
really
were.
were hurtful. Yeah. But we
Um,
learn, we grow, we get
yeah.
better, we
I
stop doing
remember,
the things we shouldn't do.
sure. I remember when I was in college, one of my friends was talking about trying to get a better price on something. And she said, she was just like, I was so blown away. I'd never heard this expression before. She said, I'm always trying to Jew someone down.
Oh my gosh.
You guys hear that? Like,
Yeah.
but I'd never heard that, you know, and and she was a very kind, you know, progressive person, but it was clear as she said it that that collection of letters, you know, just hadn't ever penetrated. And I
Mhm.
think she saw my face when she said that, because I was so stunned. I'd never heard that expression, that verb, to Jew someone
Mhm.
down. And I
Yeah.
immediately understood what it meant, which is like, you know, all the worst, some of the worst stereotypes of Jewish people right there in that one tiny little word. But
Mhm.
and then another one is to gyp someone, you know, oh,
Right.
she got gypped, you know, that's from gypsy, you know,
Mhm.
and that when we can, and the thing is that it may take a little while to get used to the fact that, you know, you now know that this is not an innocuous term, but you know, coming as someone who regularly used words like gay, retarded, spaz, you know, and thought that they were, you know, pretty non-inflammatory, believe it or not.
Right.
um it it just takes, you know, just awareness and, you
Mhm.
know, moving on, you know.
Right. And the effort to stop doing it, right? It's so easy when something is a habit
Right,
to just keep doing it. But when you understand why you need to
right,
make that change and
right,
you embody that and you remember it, then it's really not it's not difficult for me to not use those same words that I was using when I was a
right,
teenager, you know,
right.
now as a grown up.
Oh my god, you're so gay. It's probably good to not walk around talking like
Right.
that.
Exactly.
How about you, Kelly? Were there any words that you ever thought were pretty innocuous and then you came to learn were, you know, hurtful or, you know, oppressive in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the ones you did, and I grew up in the 80s too, and but I never used those words. Like they were around, but I just never used them.
Yeah,
Maybe as a kid, but definitely as an adult, I don't think I have,
yeah,
even though like language and our use of language like
yeah,
has only more recently become like, you know, educational of how these
right,
words, heard. I think like instinctively I kind of just knew that, the intent behind some of these words and I stopped using them. But I never used spaz. I know the word.
yeah,
I never used it, but I didn't know until this whole Lizzo thing came out what
yeah,
spaz was short form for. Right. So
right.
I'm kind of glad that I never used it. And obviously will never use it. Yeah.
Yeah,
And same, and it's not even like I just think words that are hateful in
hurtful.
general
Mhm.
are, we should just stop using, like even things like
Yeah,
idiot, things like that, like wanting to hurt somebody with words is,
Mhm.
right.
something that I want to be really mindful of and not try to do,
Of course.
regardless of whether it's a direct whatever word to mean something
Right.
else, or even if it doesn't have a specific attachment other than a negative word for someone.
Right.
Yeah.
I was made fun of a lot growing up. You know, not, you know, like verbally, you know, mocked from like fifth grade through eighth grade, I guess. That nice little middle school time that was so fun for all of us. But
Mhm.
I always thought of myself as more sensitive and more kind because of that experience. But you can't ever hold yourself above reproach. You know what I mean? You can't. And I think that's where I think a lot of times people get hung up is they're like, no, I'm a good person. I'm one of the good people. Don't, you know, criticize me, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things I was just thinking about while we've been talking is, you know, a corollary about language to the vegan world and animal rights and stuff is using terms that are accurate. You know, like I have never said seafood. I never liked that term. and I, so like, even, I guess since I was a vegetarian, I've always called them sea life or sea animals, but sea life is to me a good opportunity to remind people they weren't born as food.
Right.
But there are so many examples of ways that we can use language to, in a very simple, non-confrontational but thoughtful way, reframe how people think about animals. Like, just to say, for example, I can't eat meat, or I can't eat eggs. Instead, say I choose not to, or I do not eat. And also consider not saying the word meat, say flesh, because meat is almost like, it's a way of kind of categorizing something without really thinking about it. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be gross. I do know, there are people who will say corpse and stuff like that. I'm trying to not use charged language, but I am trying to use accurate language, which leads me to another thought I just had, if you guys don't mind, just a thought.
Yeah.
A friend of mine posted this picture of a pizza she got that had the words plant-based on it. It's Ogi or Aji, OGGI. Pizza, and it says, plant-based, and she was all excited about it, and she brought it home, and it's got mozzarella in it, and cow-based mozzarella. And so what's interesting is the term plant-based, if you think about it, it could mean just based in plants. Like, a pizza is based in wheat, or whatever the plant of the wheat. So I think when we're using terms that are inaccurate, and like, everyone knows what vegan means, you're not going to slap that label on something, and makers of it will be confused, buyers of it will be confused. And so, like, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that. Because to me, plant-based doesn't mean anything now. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I know for me, like when I do cooking demos, depending on who the audience is, like if I do it on like Lunch Break Live, Jane Unchained, I know I can say those words like cow milk, or like you said, animal meat, animal flesh or whatever, right? But I do absolutely like to use that because it's the truth. Meat divorces you from what it is you're really eating and allows you to kind of forget. So if I say meat, I would say plant meat, right? I try to say plant meat, because when you say faux meat, fake meat, it's like saying that meat is we know
real thing,
norm, but we want to take that norm away and put plant meat as norm. And meat isn't just prescribes an animal flesh, like there's coconut meat, like there's all meat is more than just an animal.
Nut meats,
right?
Yeah.
So, exactly. So that's always my argument whenever I hear why do you use the word meat? Why do you want the word meat and all that, right? So I do agree. I try to use all those words as well to associate it with the animals, just to remind people they're consuming animals, right?
Yeah.
And not use euphemisms, like people say, pig flesh, or whatever. Yeah. So I totally agree with you. And a lot of times I'll say, like, vegans actually get after me about it sometimes. It's annoying, but like, I'll say, like, if I'm talking about the broader category of like nuggets, patties, etc., that are plant-based, vegan, I'll call them vegan proteins. And then people will be like, well, there's protein in everything. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, I know, but what I'm talking about is the vegan version of these things. So, Kimberly, what are your thoughts on plant-based, using euphemisms, etc.?
I agree that plant-based has become meaningless, and I feel like people who use that label to describe themselves, they almost, and I'm finding this based on like people who reach out to be guests on my podcast. on my
Mhm.
website, it's very clear that to be a guest on Did You Bring the Hummus, you have to be vegan. And I have the definition of veganism. And one of the questions, there's like a little quiz you can take on my website. And one of the questions is, like, what does veganism mean to me? And it means that I don't use any animals in any aspect of my life. I only don't eat animals. I'm not worried about anything else. And then I'm not
Right.
vegan. And so many people will select the vegan, I don't use animals at all in my life. And then I always do a discovery call before we actually book the
Right.
recording for the podcast. And so I'll ask them, like, tell me about your veganism. And they'll be like, oh yeah, so I only eat plants, I'm whole food, plant-based, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll ask, like, okay, well, how about like leather? What's your take on leather? Do you buy animal
Right.
products? Do you buy things tested on animals? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I just don't eat. I want to be on your podcast to talk about my
I'm
whole
not
food
an
plant-based
extremer.
coaching. Or exactly. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's like becoming this word that some people seem to think means vegan, and other people are just using it because it's like a cool buzzword right now. Yeah.
Right.
So
Or to
I don't
avoid
know.
the vegan word because they think that
Right.
that will not help
Yes.
their sales or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
So many, I can't tell you how many people are like, you should not say vegan as often as you do. Not everybody
So
wants
funny.
to be vegan.
Right. We I slap the word vegan on practically everything, like that, but I always have been because I've always been really proud to be vegan since the 90s.
Mhm.
I've always, it's never been something I've shied away from. I mean, like, I try to talk to people where they're at. I'm not going to go into a senior care facility and start saying vegan, animal rights, but I will try to, discuss it without shying away. Okay. So Diane asked, how do we feel about Kim Kardashian and Khloe Kardashian being spokespersons for Beyond Meat and dairy sausages? I have thoughts. I have lots of thoughts. Imagine that. Okay, so one thought is, and this has nothing to do with this show or this topic, I am real sick of very, very wealthy, very, very famous people monetizing to the moon and back. Like, I am so sick of seeing Drew Barrymore is now selling this, and this person selling that, and this person. I just, like, the greed to me is so, and just, it's so sickening. There was a very so the question is, how effective is it when they get like a high profile? Does that ripple out and help the animals? I guess that's the bottom line. Does it demystify these things? Does it make it less scary to try? I don't know if anyone's ever been able to, like, people say it, but I don't know if anyone's ever been able to prove that. It looks like Kelly may have lost.
We lost Ellie. Yeah.
So I would like, again, if we're talking about clarity in language, I would like, if people are going to make such claims, that they're able to back that up with some statistics of some sort. Like, this poll said that when a famous person is associated, it sounds like Kelly's back, is associated with, hey Kelly. So I would like to not take it for granted that just because someone is famous and they're hawking a vegan product, it means that it's necessarily a win for the animals. I haven't seen the proof of that. The other thing I thought was so funny, I think it was on Jezebel, I don't remember, but there was a commercial Kim Kardashian had done for Beyond Meat. It may have just been an Instagram thing, like 60-second thing. She's just talking about, like, oh, it's so delicious. And there's, pieces of the Beyond Meat or whatever on forks. She never eats it. She's always holding it. She's like, oh, like, she can't even pretend to eat it for 5 seconds for a commercial where she's trying to sell something. I will tell you one thing, like, when we're making recipes for Vegan Street, we eat all of that. You know, we're not like just making little pretty pictures. You know, like we're gonna.
There was such a response to that. So many people were like, why is she the spokesperson? She doesn't even like it.
Yeah.
They showed the clips of her actually eating it. Because no one believed it. Everyone was like, Kim's not eating this
Is
stuff.
there like a
So
spit bucket next to her where she's like, I don't even know if
maybe,
it's, like,
right?
whether she likes it or not. It's just so much as like, I don't want to
Well,
look gross by opening my mouth on camera. You know?
she had that stint where she was telling people she was vegan, right? And I remember she did a tour of her kitchen, which was outrageous. You want to be jealous of someone's kitchen. Oh my God, with the walk-in pantries, the cold pantry, and the walk-in refrigerator, and but she was, talking about being plant-based. And then Chloe just not Chloe. Courtney just married Travis, right? And Travis Barker has been calling himself vegan for 20 something years at least now. Yeah. And like some people are like, is he even vegan? So like they're all just jumping on this train, I guess, because vegan is becoming, like you said, something they can monetize. And it is really sad that that's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, why aren't we being we can be spokespeople for these products. We actually eat them. Hello,
Right.
meat.
Well, and I was thinking if these people are like really, if they're really passionate about this product, like they want people to reduce their meat intake, they would donate their time to promote this. If there is actually a job description called chief, whatever her title was that she apparently got hired for, why isn't exactly a vegan getting that job? Why are we paying her like $5 million or whatever to be that?
Well, yes. Kelly, she is the chief tastemaker. I can't really do the up talk thing, but or whatever.
A vocal fry, they're also good at.
I can't. Oh God! But the point is that it's an irritation of mine. The thing is that vegans have been promoting these brands from the get. You know, we will be shouting it from the rooftops when there's a new vegan product. We are always. This is another little side issue of mine. Is vegans are happy to share this information and happy to share about these brands. Looks like Kelly got lost again. Daring chicken in particular is so good. I don't know if you've ever tried it, Kimberly. It's very, very, very good. But the point is that I think the brands know that they don't need to promote to us. They're trying to promote to the omnis, but also one of the things that bothers me as a small business owner is my husband and I are consistently being asked when we sell this or that, what percent, you wouldn't believe how many people ask this, what percentage of your sales goes to XYZ causes? Nobody ever asked Beyond Meat. Nobody ever asked Daring Foods. Nobody ever asked these large, deep-pocketed, deeply invested in companies, but they will just nag and nag and nag at these little companies that are, just trying, so it's kind of upside down dynamic that really irritates me. So anyway, Susan, I don't know if we answered your question. But yeah, okay, so Susan wrote, commercial food companies have corrupted whole food plant-based way of eating and helped create the confusion. It is certainly possible to be both vegan and WFPB. T. Colin Campbell's program stresses that. That's really excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, like for me, I want to eat as healthy as I can, but I'm definitely not centering that. How about you guys?
No, I'm the same. I want to eat better, but I'm not like, I want to be whole food plant-based. Yeah.
My whole brand is around teaching people who want to reduce their meat intake and eat more plants, how easy it is to transition their comfort foods to vegans. So,
Right.
like, you know, so I'm the same. Like, yeah, you know, we eat healthier, but
Well,
you know,
I think
I
the
love my
thing is
comfort
that,
food.
yeah, everyone has their approach. Like there are so many food, vegan food developers out there who focus on WFPB. And then there are people like you who are just trying to make it more accessible. That's kind of my thing too, is I'm you won't find a ton of oil in my recipes just because I don't tend to cook like that, but that's not a driving principle of my, recipe. Mine is more about just reducing the, obstacles in the way, but yeah, I mean, Susan, like back in the 90s, we had no, we had no, we had no convenience foods, other than like accidental stuff like Ruffles or whatever. Um, so that's kind of the way I came of age as a vegan. We didn't have like sausages, and the burgers we had are the ones that people like laugh about now. The ones with beans. When I first went vegan, that was just when Silk came out, which made it much easier. But yeah, I mean, that was we just kind of cooked stuff from scratch because that was what our option was, and it taught us how to, be resourceful and be good cooks. It's like when you vegan in this world, someone who's like a longtime vegan, we're good. Like we don't need to have like vegan restaurants left and right. We can figure out menus. We can, you know what I mean? We can read between the lines on things so that we can get decent meals, because I think it teaches you to be a little more resourceful and, less bratty about stuff. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Kelly. I have another thought. I want to go in a different direction.
Go ahead.
So I wanted to kind of go back to Marla, what you were talking about language and how important it is in the way that we talk about things. Because my favorite thing to point out is these little, what are they called? Idioms, maybe? Like to kill two birds with one stone.
Yeah.
Like how violent and angry is that? Why are you trying to kill birds at all? So my favorite Buddhist monk, Ajahn Brahm, I love this. He has the best version in response to this is that you're going to cut two carrots with one knife.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
But like people say that like it's nothing. Oh yeah, I'll get this done and be like killing two birds with one stone. Why are you so violent just for no reason? And that's not their fault at all. It's just something you say. People know what it means.
Right,
It doesn't mean anything beyond that. But it does, and it divorces us from that knowledge we have that animals suffer and animals, we are killing them constantly in so many aspects of the way the world is run, like, beating a dead horse. Like, why are we saying stuff like that?
Right. The straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, there's so many. They're actually, I don't know if you guys have I don't know if it's in later issues and stuff, or editions, but like the first edition of the book Vegan Vittles, Stepaniak, had all of those different expressions. With non-violent, beautiful, just like very easy. But yeah, what we had always said with our son is, I'm sorry, what we had always said was, you could feed two birds with one scone, SCONE. Then we started getting yelled at from vegans because birds and pussy power.
Yeah. Don't feed bird scones.
Yeah, you know what we mean, right? And then like when we would be doing, what's that one with the toes? the little rhyme.
Oh, this little
This
piggy
little
went to the
piggy?
market.
Oh, yeah,
This
yeah,
little
yeah,
pig-
yeah.
yeah.
So when I was growing up, I didn't realize, and I didn't realize till I was an adult that this little piggy went to market means that he went to slaughter.
Right.
But anyway, so we just leave it alone because the little piggy's going shopping, It's okay, Diane. They're all the same
Yeah.
to me.
No worries.
Honestly, you could have said any K sounding name and it would have been the same.
We wouldn't have
But
questioned
we
it.
would say, this little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy ate roast beef.
Roast beef. Yeah.
Roast beets. This little piggy had none. This little piggy went wee all the way up. But yeah, there's so many ways, just like easily, creatively, just do the little switcheroo. And why not? Like, why not? Language matters. Language is important. It informs our world. It informs our attitudes, So why not try to reduce the violence in your language? As long as you're not being like, I think everyone sticks their foot in their mouth at some point without meaning to, and,
Yeah.
as long as we can show a little patience and understanding that people are trying and, explain to them. I remember once I had a landlord say to me, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And that was like the first time I ever heard that. I was like, oh my God, that is the worst saying I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah. That's some visual, right? And that one, it's so visceral, right?
To skin a peach, right? Skin a potato. Yes.
Right.
That's
there you go.
So
Susan's right there with you.
Yeah, that's what we said, Susan, because we were like, we don't want to raise our son with this idea of eating animals, And he's 20 now and vegan still. So
it's these types of what's the word they are? Idioms.
Expressions.
I actually have more trouble with getting out of my language than like the words like spaz and things like that, because like you said, it's so ingrained, right? And and we first heard about this like years ago, because there's a Toronto activist, John Sarkars, who does a video that says don't use animals as an insult. And we watched that video and we're like, and he has all these ones and we're just like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, so that's when we started thinking about our language. But it is so ingrained. We try so hard, and we call in our family, like we will call each other out when we use it, right? Just for accountability.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's just like I think a lot of times we just need to become aware of it, and especially if somebody's new to all of this, it's such a radical reforming of how you think about the world, that is like, oh my God, now I have to think about language too. Oh, Jesus Christ. I've got to get rid of my wardrobe. I've got to learn how to cook. I've got to, So I think showing a little generosity of spirit and largesse and just saying, that it is, I feel like even all these years after going vegan, I feel like I still stumble sometimes, often. It's just the world is set up for, being not vegan, so it takes a while, it's an ongoing process,
And going back to the word tradition, as it pertains to quote unquote food, animal food, is there's so many things that the marketing like people can't say about animal foods because they're not allowed. So what they play on is this tradition. I mean, there's one song, I can't remember what company it is, but the whole song is it's tradition. That's all they do. They have them doing all these different things. They're at a ball game, they're barbecuing, and it's literally singing it's tradition. Like that's their song. That's all they have to say. And that people are like, yeah, tradition, man. Ooh, and that's all they have to do. And it will sell. And that's really sad that it takes that little of of implant in people's head for people to be like, yeah, and they benefit financially from it. And we see it in our ads, like on our subways and on our buses, especially for the egg industry. they're all focused on the farmer and their tradition and this and that, because that's all they can do, because eggs are unhealthy for you. So, but when you remind people, yeah, it's farmers feed people, they feed cities, right? So it's tough.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
they're like, you don't want to put farmers out of work, right? They're the backbone of our country. Like,
Right.
no, we don't want to
Well,
put
that's
them out of
why.
work. We want them to farm something different.
Sure. And that's why what like Miyoko is doing is so amazing. Like Miyoko from Miyoko's Creamery is she's helping to fund. She lives in dairy country, so that's specific to her passion. Is and obviously she makes a cheese replacer. Is to help to get, because a lot of farmers who are second, third, fourth generation, they love the work. They love being outside. I mean, I know it may sound silly to vegans, but I think a lot of people really do love that job. She's helping them to transition to plant-based agriculture, and it's not only healthier for the planet, healthier for the animals, of course, healthier for their own bodies, but it's an actual solution. It's not just saying, get out of that job, it's saying,
Right.
we know you love to raise food. How about this food, and it's really helping to, create that option for people, who are desperate. Like the margins on everything in the animal agribusiness are so narrow, except for the top tier of Tyson and the owners of these companies, that these are the thinnest of margins. They don't want to be living like this anymore. They want to continue growing food and feeding people, but most would love to be able to do that without all of the baggage, and they're going to be creating new avenues of revenue for future generations. Like the dairy industry is a dying industry, in particular, and the rest are going to follow suit. So why not try to encourage people to move to something better?
I think they're also saying as well that their children don't want to be part of it. They want to go to the city. They want to do tech jobs or like whatever, So it's like, who are they going to pass it on to, right? So
right. Yeah, absolutely. And that was kind of I don't know, are you guys familiar with the brand Kimberly? You probably have heard of it. That one brand based in New York, and it's like a Elmhurst Dairy.
Oh, yeah.
Been around since the 1920s, and the decision came to them. It's like, either we close down or we go into plant milks, because they were a dairy based milk company. They went into plant milks, and they're doing amazingly well now. So I mean, I don't think everyone has such viable options in front of them, but there are ways to help encourage it. Like I would definitely recommend for people to check out Miyoko Shinner and the work she's doing. Can't think of the name of the program off the top of my head right now, but Renee, can't think of her last name.
you talking about the RAP Summit, the RAP Ranchers Advocacy?
What's that? Oh, yeah.
Ranchers Advocacy Program?
Yeah, it's just helping people get out of the meat industry and into, animal.
Mercy for Animals has one too.
Yeah.
Called Transformation.
That's right.
Oh, that's a great name. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's definitely the future, but we have to try to encourage it,
Yeah, for sure.
So,
All right. Well, look at us. We made it the full hour. I think we had an amazing conversation.
blah, blah, blah.
So let's close it out. All right. Bye, Marla and Kelly. All right. So did you know it was going to go that way? I didn't. but I think we had an amazing conversation. And I think that talking about language, whether it's related to veganism or people in general, or just anything, that if we can be more mindful about how we speak to each other, about the world around us, we can start to make small changes that actually create big improvements in our world. So, what I would challenge you, and I'm going to keep challenging myself, is start to become aware of those things that you say all the time, or a word that you go to that maybe you shouldn't go to anymore, and start to notice when you use it. Find something else to say, something that isn't potentially hurtful, something that can expand the world instead of contracting it, and do it. Be mindful and start to make that small shift, and I think that you will notice a significant change, not just in you, but in the people around you. And really, that's all we can do, and that's how we make the world a better place. So, that's it. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We'll be back with our Pride episode next Wednesday. I will be back on Fireside Chat with Kimberly on Monday. I promise I'll be there. And thank you, and have an amazing week and amazing night. Bye.